Hello, Sandman Nation, and it is a great day. Yes, it is a great freaking day because the Kansas City Chiefs got absolutely humiliated in Super Bowl 59, and that, folks, brings a big smile to this face. So, with that happiness all around us, let's get into it because it is time to enter Sandman Sports. Sharing in my joy and jubilation today is my good friend and even better co-host, Mr. Pat Klatt. Pat is so happy the Chiefs lost on Sunday, he immediately created a Spotify playlist called Mahomes Tears, The Greatest Hits. I cannot wait to give that a listen soon, big guy. And then there is the Vince Lombardi of Sandman Nation, the guy who started it all. The Sandman, Mr. Bill Sanders. Like Lombardi, Bill is one of the all-time best at what he does, but he did lose and nailed it this year, which means he and Pat will be coming to Cincinnati for a legendary weekend and a great dinner at one of Cincinnati's best restaurants, Jeff Ruby's. But Bill, I've dined with you before. So two things. One, please leave the flashlight at home. It's not that dark and you aren't that old. And two, for the love of God, it's called bruschetta. Stop asking the waiter for that, quote, fancy garlic bread. Please do not embarrass me and Pat at Jeff Ruby's, okay?
Noted.
Do I wear a suit? Is this how nice we're talking?
This is nice, Pat. We do not mess around in Cincinnati. But no, you do not need to wear a suit.
I'll be like this.
Yeah. And I'll get the menu like this.
Yeah.
Huh?
I'll do the take the picture and then you do the whole pinch and zoom thing with the.
That's smart.
It's my wife's trick.
Veteran move.
Shout out, Marcy.
Yes. Now it won't be that dark, so I think we'll be okay, gentlemen. But yeah, it's gonna be a fun weekend. We'll talk more about that later, actually, in the show. We'll share out who won the listener competition and who will be joining us for that weekend too. But before we get into the show, let's tell everyone where they can find us. Well, Sandman listeners, you can find us everywhere, just like unintelligible words in a Kendrick Lamar song. One place that you can find us is our very cool and newly improved website, entersandmansports.com. As we've mentioned the last few weeks, we are really proud of the changes that we've made. We're getting a lot of great feedback and posting new content every day. So a lot of awesome stuff there. Check it out. Let us know what you think. While you're at it, make sure to follow us. Instagram at Enter Sandman Sports, Facebook at Enter Sandman Sports. We post updates almost daily. Would love to see your interactions with us there, and YouTube at Enter Sandman Sports. Hit that subscribe button. All right, gents. Well, let's get into it. The big news of the weekend, of course, was the Super Bowl, and we'll get into that later. But there was some other NFL-related news over the weekend, and that's where I want to focus our opening today. So this year's NFL Hall of Fame class was announced, and there will be 4 inductees. Eric Allen, the longtime Philadelphia Eagle cornerback who played 14 seasons, he gets in his 19th year of eligibility. Jared Allen, while he started with the Chiefs, Allen really shined for Pat's Vikings and played 12 seasons in the NFL, being one of the most dominant pass rushers in the league during his tenure. He gets in his 5th year of eligibility. Antonio Gates, the all-everything tight end, played 16 seasons with the Chargers and will go down as one of the all-time great tight ends ever. For some stupid reason, he did not get in last year when it was first year of eligibility, but he does get in this year. Does the Ichiro hater also get a Pro Football Hall of Fame vote too? That's the only thing I can think of. And Sterling Sharp. Sharp only played for 7 seasons, all with the Packers, but he maximized every minute he was with them, being one of the most accomplished and unstoppable wide receivers during his playing career before a neck injury required retirement. He was the lone finalist from the seniors, coach, and contributor categories, so I'm glad he finally got in. So, boys, 2 questions for you. One, what are some of your overall thoughts and reactions to these 4 in particular? Are they good selections? Any memories from watching these guys play? And then 2, I want to hear from you. Who's been snubbed? Who are some past players who are eligible to be inducted but have not been inducted yet, and you feel they are completely worthy and should be inducted immediately? All right, Pat, why don't you start us off, sir?
Well, it was nice to see Jared Allen get the nod. He was fun.
I thought you would.
He had the greatest sack celebration where he hog tie, whatever, rodeo tie up the, what do they call that, calf?
the calf
roping.
Calf roping.
Yeah, calf roping.
Yeah, he'd always do that celebration. And he was super fast. He was fun to watch. And Antonio Gates was one of my favorites. I loved Gates. So it's good to see him get in. My snubs list, I feel like I tend to stick to more wide receivers. Oh, and with Shannon Sharp, Green Bay Packer. So I don't think he should have got in. It's Sterling Sharp. Sorry.
I was gonna say. Sterling, I think we want to give
Sterling Sharp, not his brother
his
Shannon.
own due. Yeah,
but Sterling Sharp, because he's a Packer and he only played 7 years, I don't think he should have got in. That was one of the things I thought for my snub list. I was kind of debating on Luke Kuechly. He was only in the league for 8 years, but when he was in the league, he was moving guys around. He was dominant. There's guys you look at on the field and you're like, that is a man amongst boys, and he just moved people around and he was a force. So I like Kuechly, but again, it's the longevity, if that is a factor, only playing for 8 years and cutting his career short. But my favorite players who are not in yet would be Steve Smith Sr. I mean, he was awesome. He's so good.
He was so good, dude.
I just think he should be automatically in there. Reggie Stately Wayne Manor. Yeah. Shout out to Berman there. Anquan Bolden. Anquan Bolden had the best hands. Anything in his area, his catch radius is caught. He's strong hands, box guys out. He would bring that ball in. There was no doubt about it. And he was another guy who would throw blocks, which I always like in my wide receiver as a guy, like my next one, Hines Ward, Anquan Bolden. Those guys would throw blocks and they would lay guys out, and they took a lot of pride in that part of their game. So give me Hines Ward as well. And then Adam Vinatieri, when you think kickers, he's kicker extraordinaire. What else do you need? I mean, the guy was with the Colts, with the Patriots, and just made clutch kick after clutch kick. So those would be that's my snub list. And congrats to the guys who made it, except for Sterling Sharp, who's I will always hate. So what about you, Bill?
Yeah, I was a little surprised to see Sterling Sharp in there as well. And I think I kind of agree with Pat's takes. I think he was in that other category and had to wait around for a long time to make it in. So maybe that's something there. But I figured that Pat would talk about Jared Allen, so I didn't really prepare anything for him. But Antonio Gates, that guy was just such a beast fantasy-wise for so long. And again, fantasy stats don't always necessarily equate to Hall of Fame, but I would say it's a pretty good indicator of a guy who's put up a lot of numbers and probably will get in. And I mean, for a guy who never felt like he was super fast or like even crazy athletic, he just was always in the right spot and great hands. And just, anyway, that guy was just a force for so long. So kudos to him. Kudos to all the guys for getting in. No beef against Eric Allen either or anyone. But my snub list, I'll go off the grid a little bit, but where I typically go, which you guys are familiar now through episode 25.
Alex Honnold. He should be in the
Alex
Football Hall of Fame.
Yeah. Dude, can you imagine that guy's hands? Oh my God.
Yeah.
He would catch everything. Yeah.
Sean Alexander.
He'd catch it with his fingers, his fingertips. He'd just be like snagging balls with his fingertips.
Sean Alexander.
Definitely not Sean Alexander. Although, he had a great run as a Seahawk, but you're on the right track. My snub is Mike Holmgren. So out here in Seattle, there was a ton of talk leading into this year's voting about Mike Holmgren making it in. And when you look at Mike Holmgren's stats compared to other coaches that are in there, it is absolutely ridiculous that he is not in the Hall. And now, again, for me, it's obviously there's a little bias there with the Seahawks. I mean, if you guys remember, Holmgren came from Green Bay. He also was an unbelievable assistant coach under the Bill Walsh coaching tree. He has a ton of guys that followed in his footsteps as well, including Andy Reid, who has turned into one of the greatest coaches in league history. Holmgren's just one of those guys. He put Seattle on the map, right? I mean, when he came, Paul Allen, the late owner of the Seahawks, paid him $1 zillion to come out here. And he just instantly, the Seahawks were like one of the more, reputable franchises. Just like he just gave him that credibility. And so I have a lot of love for him as a fan. for that reason. But just a couple of quick stats that I looked up. I mean, in all, he won 161 games, 86 with Seattle. He won another 13 playoff games. He had Super Bowls as assistant coach, took the Seahawks to the Super Bowl in 2005. Pat just mentioned Hines Ward, made my skin crawl a little bit because, you know, he was just a stud for the Steeler team that beat the Seahawks. Anyway, that's my snub. Holmgren deserves to get in. I think he will. But everybody out here was a little distraught that he didn't make it in this year. The guy deserves to be there. And the other thing too is he's just a great human. He started as an educator, teacher, a great teacher of these athletes in the game. And so I think he's just got that soft spot out here in Seattle and also in Green Bay, where he has a street named after him outside of Lambeau. So anyway, Holmgren's my snub.
Pat looks like he's trying to harm you with his eyes right now. I don't think he likes the Holmgren selection.
Packers.
I actually like Holmgren. Holmgren, I like him. Yeah,
he lives out here in the Seattle area now too, and has become quite a figure in the area community. So, and his wife just seems super cool, Kathy Holmgren. She's just like the coolest lady who raises a ton of money for people in need and that sort of thing. So, anyway,
and
cool family. He'll get in.
In general, Eric, I have a resting bitch face, so I can't control it. I could be thinking about like food, and I look like I want to murder you. So
we'll remember that.
That's what happens.
Jeff Ruby's.
When I have a severe case of RBF. Yeah,
RBF.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so I will start with Antonio Gates. It's funny because as new awesome guys start to come in the league, I think it's easy to forget about some of the past greats. You know, for example, Gronk comes in and best tight end ever. And then Kelsey is now best tight end ever. But guys, and you kind of mentioned this, Bill, but Antonio Gates was amazing when he played. And I remember from a fantasy football standpoint, he kind of revolutionized the way people drafted tight ends. Prior to him, tight ends were kind of throwaways and almost treated not quite this bad, but almost like defenses and kickers, where people would just draft them later in the draft. They were rarely a differentiating type of pick. But this guy comes in, starts dominating. And I remember trying to draft this guy in the second and third rounds many years, which was just unheard of back then. Now Kelsey goes first round and you don't really bat an eye. But you know what? I won a lot of leagues because of him back in the day. But that's just the fantasy standpoint. On the field, his stats were stupid good. He reached 8 straight Pro Bowls from 2004 to 2011. Catching at least 7 touchdowns in each of those seasons. He finished his career with 955 receptions and almost 12,000 receiving yards, which lands him 4th all-time for tight ends in both of those categories. His 116 career touchdowns in 8 seasons with at least 8 receiving TDs are the most among tight ends in NFL history. And by the way, guys, let's not forget, this was an undrafted player out of Kent State who was known for playing basketball there. So just one of the all-time best and really, really happy that he is in. Congrats, Mr. Gates. And real quick on Jared Allen, I forgot how good this guy was. He racked up at least 11 sacks in each of his 6 seasons in Minnesota. And in 2011, he tallied 22 sacks. That is still second most in NFL history behind Michael Strahan and TJ Watt, who both had 22 and a half. He had 135 career sacks, 12th all time in 187 games played. So just a great player there and very well deserved.
Cool personality too. He is, he was a character. His interviews were always fun to watch.
Yeah.
As far as snubs, I have a couple, and I think I even mentioned this guy on a recent pod. But being the Cincinnati guy, I have no idea how Bengals quarterback Kenny Anderson is not in the hall yet. Here's my case. I'll start with him leading the league in passer rating 4 times. 1974, 75, 81, and 82. Only Hall of Famer Steve Young did it more often. He led the league 6 times. Only 2 quarterbacks who accomplished that feat aren't currently in the Hall of Fame. Kenny Anderson and still active Aaron Rodgers, who will be. Anderson led the NFL 3 times in completion percentage, twice in passing yards, and 3 times in the lowest percentage of passes intercepted, which is pretty freaking impressive when you think about that. From 1973 to 76, only Fran Tarkenton passed for more yards, and only Ken Stabler threw for more touchdowns. And only Tarkenton, Stabler, and Roger Staubach won more games those 4 seasons. All of those are members of the Hall of Fame currently. Then I will admit he did have a couple down years where the Bengals struggled, and so did Anderson's stats. But then he bounced back, and in 1981, he led the Bengals to the Super Bowl. That season, he also won the league MVP, got his third league passing title, and was voted the league's offensive player and comeback players of the year. In 1982, he was just as good, and he set an NFL record with a 70.6 completion percentage, a mark that stood all the way up until 2009 when Drew Brees broke it by 0.05%. His mark still stands 8th all time, despite all the current rules changes that favor the passing game now. No, he never won a Super Bowl, but neither did Warren Moon, Dan Marino, Fran Tarkenton, Dan Fouts, or Jim Kelly, and those guys are all in. Come on, Hall. This guy by far has the strongest case of all quarterbacks to be in Canton. Give this man his gold jacket now. And then I won't go into all the stats with these guys, but these three need to be put in ASAP as well, in my opinion. And Pat, I mean, dude, you and I are just freaking. We must. Have we checked to make sure we're not brothers somehow? Because I'm telling you what, dude. Anquan Bolden, that guy. That guy needs to be in. He played for the Cardinals.
My brothers used to tell me I was adopted. My older brothers.
My siblings tell me the same. So there you go. That explains it.
Yep.
Now he played for the Cardinals, Ravens, 49ers, and Lions in a 14-year career. He won 2003 Rookie of the Year, was a key contributor on the Ravens Super Bowl team back in 2012. But this guy was so freaking strong, like just strong. He would just get people out of the way. He caught everything thrown to him. He always seemed to be clutch. I love Bolden and think he should be in. One other guy I'll just mention. I actually was shocked this guy wasn't in. And he's an old schooler, but offensive lineman Joe Jacoby. He was an incredible offensive lineman, member of the famed Hogs line for the Washington Redskins back in the 80s. He was a Pro Bowler from 83 to 86. He won 3 Super Bowls and was a member of the all 1980s team. I mean, this guy was just incredible. And for an offensive lineman, I don't know how he's not in. So Clay Matthews is another one real quick. He was a linebacker for 19 seasons for the Browns and Falcons. I loved that guy. He was tough as nails. He led the NFL in tackles in 4 different seasons, which I think is pretty impressive. He helped the Browns make 3 straight AFC championship games in the late 80s. So another one, but I think, Anquan Bolden definitely.
Some babies. He had some babies that could play some football too.
That's true.
Clay Matthews.
Yes, he did.
I mean, you should get into the Hall just based on offspring,
for having babies,
having cool babies. Like TJ Watt's dad should be in the Hall of Fame just for making 3 NFL babies. That should be a new category.
The parents' wing.
The parent thing.
Yep.
Love it.
Anyway.
All right. Well, thank you, gents, for sharing your thoughts on the Hall of Fame. Good stuff. So let's get into today's show now. As always, we'll start with headlines from the past weekend, our hot takes and reflections. We'll get into our Stone Cold Locks, which this week we will focus on golf and the Genesis Invitational. Then we'll get into this week's top 5, which will be fun and nostalgic. And of course, we'll have plenty of fun and shenanigans along the way. Plus, Pat will open up about that summer he spent at Rodeo Clown Camp back in high school.
I never did that. Well, that's not true, Eric.
Did I make that up?
Lies.
Am I? Oh man, I never make shit up about you, yes. Pat. All right, I'll try to be more careful. All right. Well, the big headline was that the Philadelphia Eagles crushed the Kansas City Chiefs in Super Bowl 59, winning 40-22 in a game that was nowhere near to being as close as that score. In one of the most lopsided Super Bowls this century, the Eagles looked especially worthy of hoisting their second Lombardi trophy, with their first one coming back in Super Bowl 52. Eagles quarterback Jalen Hurts won the MVP award behind 221 passing yards, 2 passing touchdowns, and 72 yards on the ground to go along with 1 rushing touchdown. fellow backfield mate Saquon Barkley had his worst performance of the season, rushing 25 times for 57 yards. But that was not entirely unexpected, as the Chiefs made it clear they were not going to let Barkley beat them with his legs. But the real story, as it has been most of the season, was the number 1 rated Eagles defense, who just flustered and suffocated Chiefs quarterback Pat Mahomes all game long. They registered 6 sacks and caused 1 fumble and 2 interceptions, including a pick 6. Linebacker Josh Sweat led the destruction with 2.5 sacks, closely followed by defensive tackle Milton Williams, who contributed 2 sacks. It was 24-0 at halftime and was really one of the more boring games I can remember, yet I stayed glued to the TV because it was so fun to see Mahomes, Kelsey, Reed, just all of them getting so confused and wondering what the fuck was happening. I loved every second of it. I'm sure we will hear more about this game in our hot takes. So, another headline staying with the NFL, in a fairly big surprise, Buffalo Bills quarterback Josh Allen was announced as the 2025 NFL MVP, slightly edging out odds-on favorite Lamar Jackson of the Ravens. Allen finished with 3,731 passing yards, 28 passing touchdowns, only 6 interceptions, and a quarterback rating of 101.4. And he led the Bills to the AFC Championship game, beating Jackson and the Ravens along the way. I personally think it could have went either way, and I've always liked Allen and think he's one of the league's best. So nice to see him get his first MVP award. Congratulations, sir. In other NFL news, Eagles offensive coordinator Kellen Moore will be the next head coach of the New Orleans Saints, as that was just recently finalized. In golf, at the Waste Management Phoenix Open, Belgian golfer Thomas Dietrich ran away from the field, winning by 7 strokes with his impressive 24 underscore. It was also nice to see Daniel Berger finish second, as he was battled injuries for quite some time. Looks to be back in good health this season. And in college basketball, Saturday was a busy day with a few notable upsets. Unranked Kansas State knocked off number 16 Kansas. Unranked Creighton beat number 11 Marquette. Unranked Clemson beat number 2 Duke. And in the game of the day, number 6 Florida traveled to Auburn and beat the number 1 Tigers on their home court 90-81, and are making their own case for number 1 seed as March Madness creeps closer. All right, guys, there is a lot to react to, so can't wait to hear your hot takes. Yes, that's right. It is time for Sandman Sports Hot Takes, brought to you by Mike's Hot Honey. The honey's so great, Pat has begun to gargle with it when he has a sore throat. Mm-hmm. It's been working like a charm, hasn't it, Pat?
You're spreading lies again, Eric.
I can't help myself, buddy. If you haven't checked it out yet, seriously, I don't know what you're waiting for. Go to mikeshothoney.com right now. Order some. Go to the honey aisle at your local grocery store, and you will thank us later. All right, Pat, start us off, sir, with your hot takes.
Hot takes. Watched a lot of the Waste Management. You guys know I was pulling for Adam Hadwin, and he couldn't give me one more birdie. That stupid Canadians, what do you do? But it was a good tournament. Grillo's hole-in-one was cool.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Started ringing around the cup. That was awesome. Scheffler faltering at the end was fun to watch. I always like to see the big guy falter because he just looks so automatic. At that first front 9, it looks like he's coming back in, and you're like, oh, here we go again, Scotty Scheffler. But yeah, he faded a little bit. Spieth being back was fun to watch.
That was awesome.
But yeah, as far as the Waste Management, and Fowler wearing that outfit, that was, okay. But, and then he said he was sick the next day. I think he was just embarrassed that he actually tried to pull off that outfit. And then watching the NFL, I watch, the problem with the Super Bowl, we have people over, there's so much going on in the room. It's really hard to watch. And so I watched a little bit of the first half, and I watched the halftime show, which I thought Kendrick Lamar did fine. I thought he was good. But the thing that the second half, I probably watched like 5 minutes and then went and watched Dexter with Dexter New Blood with my wife. So, yeah. That was my weekend, and yeah, football. I'm looking forward to this next weekend. We got coming up. We got a lot of stuff. We got the hockey. What is it called? The Four Nations.
Four Nations.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's why I got my Finland great Teemu
Solani.
jersey. And then you got Auburn and Alabama, 1 versus 2 in hoops. And then the Genesis, which we'll talk about later. So should be a good sports weekend coming up. What about you, Billy?
Yeah, I mean the Super Bowl was brutal, you guys. Absolutely brutal. And I mean, again, I know you guys were both happy that Kansas City lost, but boy, just that game was, Eric mentioned it. I mean, it was just over from the get-go. It was nothing interesting. It was just, yeah, brutal. So that was a little bit crazy. I was running in from Will's soccer game, which was rescheduled like 17 times because we have so much snow out here right now. It's hard to play outdoor soccer when the snow field's covered with 6 inches of snow. So anyway, that was crazy. Missed the whole first quarter, which just I don't think I've ever done in my life of a Super Bowl, even as a kid. I mean, I don't remember ever missing that much of the game. So that was a little bit weird. But anyway, yeah, I mean, we've covered enough about the game. It was just disappointing. I was going to also mention, Pat nailed a couple of the things I was going to talk about. I mean, Rory's outfit, where do we draw the line? Where do we draw the line?
Ricky Fowler, yeah.
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
who did I say? Rory?
Ricky.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I was already thinking about the Genesis this week. I'm looking at my notes with Rory here. But yeah, Ricky, I'm sorry. And I mean, look, I actually love the fact that these guys are pushing the envelope a little bit. I mean, Jason Day's literally wearing a sweatsuit at Pebble the week before. Rory shows up in full camo. I mean, I don't know. For whatever reason, I'd call me old school, get off my lawn guy. But I mean, and I'm not even the nicest dresser. I mean, I love wearing joggers and hooded sweatshirts. But it's like,
True story.
Yeah. But it's just like, I mean, these are professionals. I mean, and I've always said they should be able to wear shorts. Where do you guys stand on that? Like PJ Tour pros.
Don't care.
I don't
I mean,
understand
I am surprised to hear you say they should wear shorts and then also say you're old school. I mean,
Yeah.
so
yeah, you're right. It's a little bit of a.
He's an old
could really care less.
Yeah,
I could care less if they wear shorts. I didn't have any problem with what Ricky wore, to be honest. Like, I don't know. I didn't think it was that bad. So I don't really care what the hell they wear. I just want them to play well.
Yeah.
I want to see good golf.
Yeah, and maybe that's what I just need to get over it and just like focus on the golf. That one seemed a little bit crazy. Griot's hole in one was awesome, and Pat mentioned the part I was going to talk about, which is that thing. If you watch it in slow motion, circles the cup 3 times before it actually falls in. Can you imagine if on the third spin it actually popped out? I mean, what would the crowd have done at the 16th? Like, would they have booed him because the thing pops out of the hole? I mean, anyway, that was the 16th hole. Thing just delivers the drama every single time. And so a local family friend, their daughter goes to Arizona, but came up to Phoenix for it. And she was down there, and I was just like, wow, as a college kid, I mean, that would just be one of the like primo events that you could go to. And here's the last thing that I'll say for my hot takes, because after driving by it last year, seeing the build out is absolutely stunning about how they've built out that course. Did you guys know that they spend 9 months of the 12 months a year taking that thing down, all of the stuff, and then building it back up before the tournament? Why don't they just leave it there? I mean, anyway, so that was just the last thing I had no idea that it was that long that they were in construction mode. Pretty crazy.
Have either of you ever been to the Waste Management?
No.
Not while it was going, no.
Yeah, I'm just curious. Like, normally you go to a golf tournament, you pay, you get in, you go to whatever hole you want. Can you buy tickets specifically to go to the 16th, or can you get like reserved seats for this? Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, why would you?
Last year,
and they have
a buddy that lives in
suites.
Scottsdale, $10,000 to be on the 16th hole.
Oh my gosh. That's crazy. Yeah, I know they have suites. I knew they had suites there, but I didn't know if you can just get in early and go sit there, or if you need to actually buy specific
everything
seats
to the right of the green as you're looking at it from the tee box. Those are all free seats, first come, first serve. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Okay.
Where they're throwing the beers.
So you can still watch the 16th hole by just getting into the tournament. Okay. Yeah. Good to know. Yeah, I'd love to. We talked about bucket list stuff a couple months ago. it wouldn't ever make my top 5 bucket list, but I would love to go to Waste Management.
It'd
That
be
would
fun,
be
wouldn't
fun.
it?
Yeah.
They kind of have this Indy 500 vibe where people are like dressing up in like, with shirts that say things and hats and like group dress up stuff. Like, where's Waldo?
Are there any topless women?
I don't know.
Because that's one thing golf's missing. I feel like.
I think they need.
I feel like golf is missing the hot topless women more.
I think that's a good idea. It would bring more.
Speaking of dress code,
dirty old men like us.
Oh man! All right. Well, I'm going to keep the Hall of Fame theme and vibe going with mine because, boys, I just saw that Hall of Fame running back Marshall Faulk just accepted a position on the Colorado Buffaloes staff under Deion Sanders, and he will be their next running backs coach.
Oh, wow.
Faulk has no prior coaching experience, but obviously he was one of the all-time great players in the NFL. He's enshrined in Canton, but it got me thinking, how many members of the Pro Football Hall of Fame who made it in there as a player later became a head coach, and how did they do? Well, guys, the results are not promising for Mr. Faulk's coaching future. So this was kind of fun doing this research. If you go back and you include pre-merger, so if you include 40s, 50s, 60s, all that, there have been 24 Hall of Fame players who later became head coaches. None of the ones pre-merger were really successful or notable names. But let's focus more on post-merger. And there's 8 of those 24. So these are names we might know. So since the late 60s, there have been 8 that fits this category. And they are. First one, I'm just going to go in alphabetical order here because they kind of were all meh. Raymond Berry, he coached 5.5 seasons for the New England Patriots. He went 48-39. He did win the AFC Championship in 1985, eventually losing in Super Bowl 22 the Chicago Bears. And who did he lose to in that game? Pat said it.
Ditka.
Mike Ditka. Ditka is probably the most successful coach on this list, and he's the only one to win a Super Bowl. Coach Ditka went 121-95 over 14 seasons. And fun fact, Raymond Berry and Ditka coached against each other in Super Bowl 20, the only time in history where 2 Hall of Fame players turned coaches squared off against each other in the Super Bowl. Also on this list is Forrest Gregg. Gregg coached for 11 seasons with the Bengals and Packers. He went 75-85-1, so not really good, but he did lead the Bengals to Super Bowl 16 against the 49ers.
Did he become an announcer, Forrest Gregg? Was he an announcer?
I don't ever remember him being an announcer. I know he did coach for SMU as well in their kind of early days after the death penalty when they were trying to make it back. He coached down there, but I don't ever remember him being an announcer, Pat.
Ditka versus a hurricane.
Ditka.
The Bears.
Ditka.
Dick LeBeau, another guy who coached for the Bengals and was not very good. Shocking. LeBeau was fantastic as a defensive coordinator, but a train wreck as a head coach as he went 12-33. Another fun fact, I once played poker with LeBeau's son at a party. He was about as good at poker as his dad was at coaching. So yeah, I won a decent amount that night. Mike Munchak, he coached the Titans for 3 seasons and went 22-26. So yawn there. Art Shell, he coached the Raiders for 7 seasons and went 56-52. Mike Singletary, he coached the 49ers for 3 seasons and went 18-22. Not good, Mike. We want winners, Mike. We want winners. Bart Starr, the former Packers quarterback, coached Green Bay for 9 seasons during the mid-70s and early 80s. He finished with a 52-76-3 record. So yuck. So yeah, I mean, none of these guys were great as head coaches, not even close, really. I mean, Ditka was serviceable and he did win the Super Bowl. But I just think it shows how hard it really is to transfer from the field to the sidelines, and the skills that make one a great player certainly don't necessarily translate to being a great coach. So now I will say, Deion Sanders could join this list someday and someday soon. He is the only Hall of Fame player currently coaching in college football, D1, and he will probably have his chance someday to come to the pro game. So we will see how he does if that ever occurs. But for now, being a great player certainly does not seem to translate to being even a good coach. So good luck, Coach Falk. I think you might need it. My second quick hot take is screw you, refs. Frickin', we loved the plus 900 on a successful fourth down conversion for the Eagles on their first drive of the Super Bowl. And guess what? It's set up perfectly. 4th down and 2 around midfield. Of course they're going to go for it. Hurts throws a great pass to A.J. Brown. He catches it. Woohoo. Celebration time. Give us our money. Nope. Flag thrown for offensive interference, which was just a bad call. It was a phantom call. It was awful. Eagles, of course, had to punt then instead. So thanks for nothing, you stupid refs. My buddy Corey Taylor, who was also a finalist for Nailed It, he texted me immediately complaining as he had placed that bet too. So ugh. All right. One last one. We don't talk much about women's sports on here, but a few weeks ago, I spent a few minutes raving about Caitlin Clark and the impact that she has had on the game of women's basketball, helping its popularity spike immensely. Well, today, and Bill might be shocked because I also don't talk much about soccer on here, and Pat will yawn any moment here or snore, I guess. But I do want to give a huge shout out to U.S. women's national team star Naomi Girma, who a couple weeks ago became the first $1 million female soccer player after Chelsea signed her to a record-breaking deal. Chelsea dropped $1.12 million to bring in one of the best defenders in the game, proven that I think women's soccer is growing faster than ever. And honestly, it's about time. Despite what Bill might think, I actually really do enjoy soccer. But honestly, I just truly only watched it during the big moments such as World Cup or the Olympics. But this is the biggest transfer fee in women's soccer history, and I think it's a sign that clubs are finally trying to put real money into the women's game, and that could continue to transcend popularity as well. She has just been nothing short of dominant, playing every single minute of the U.S. women's national team gold medal run in Paris last summer. She's truly a game changer, and I think Chelsea made a great power move by locking her in long term. But this really just isn't about one player. I think it's a watershed moment for all of women's sports. More eyes, more dollars, and more investment equates to a future where $1 million contracts aren't shocking. They are expected. So congrats to Naomi Girma on setting the new standard, and I look forward to seeing more of that in the near future.
Yeah, love that, Bierman. Nice.
Yeah. All right. Well, it is now time to get into our Stone Cold Lock segment. And with football season over, this week we are shifting our attention to golf. Specifically, we will look at the Genesis Invitational, which is normally played in LA at Riviera Country Club, but because of the recent fires, it will be played at Torrey Pines down in San Diego. The Farmers Insurance Open was played there a couple weeks ago, and Harris English nudged out CM Stevens in that tourney. So let's break this down. We'll share some of the players and bets we like for this tournament. Pat, why don't you start us off, buddy?
Yeah, with the venue change and playing at Torrey Pines, you make sense to just go back and see how guys did a few weeks ago there. One of the guys that I think is playing well and should play well this week is Sungjae Im. He finished well at that same course a few weeks ago. So I like Sungjae. Thomas Dietrich, you take the hot hand. Yeah, he looked really good last week, and he not only last week. He's been playing well for a while now. So Thomas Dietrich is another guy who likes this course as well. And then Sepp Straka is playing so consistent. You got to give Sepp Straka a little bit of a look as well. I think he's probably the most consistent player on tour right now. He's just steady, always in it. I would fade Scheffler. He historically doesn't play well here and sucked at the later stages of the final round Sunday. So I think his hand injury, and I think just he's not going to be Scheffler of last year. So I'm fading Scheffler. Give me Sungjae Im, Thomas Dietrich, and Sepp Straka. as my golfers to pick to stick
Yeah,
this week.
and just real quick, Pat, for the listeners, so Sunjay M is plus 3,500 to win it, plus 550 for top 5, and plus 240 for top 10. And
I would do the top 5 bet there for sure.
Yeah, I
I
like that one too. And you said Thomas Dietrich, he's plus 5,000 to win, plus 750 for top 5, and then plus 330 for top 10.
All right. What about Sepp Straka?
And yeah, we'll get into Sepp Straka in just a little bit.
Okay. We're gonna hold that one back
Nice.
for a moment.
All right.
Crystal ball. Eric might have him on his list. Yeah, I like those picks a lot, Pat. What's crazy about, and I just love that we're talking about golf.
Yeah,
obviously, we love football, and that's been a focus of our first 25 episodes, and rightfully so. But I tell you what, with all of the pools, Sandman pools that I've been doing through the years, I have the biggest spike in attendance, interest, everything has been on golf. No doubt, without question. So many people love playing it. And so for us to talk about it, I think is really cool. Look forward to doing that more in the future. The other thing, too, is with an elevated event, it's interesting because we only have 72 players in the field this week. The cut is a top 50 plus ties, and then anybody within 10 strokes of the lead. So honestly, we might not cut anyone. Which is kind of an interesting format. But yeah, it's also, looking at the weather this week, you guys. I mean, one of the things I love, ring the bell, shout out Crush and Fade article series on our website. If you haven't checked it out, love for you to go like and comment. But one of the things that I always like to do is look at sort of who's the horse for the course, like who's done well. Pat mentioned it. They just played the Farmers there a few weeks ago because of the Southern Cal fires. So they've shifted this golf tournament to Torrey Pines, and they're only playing they will play all 4 rounds on the South course, which is the much harder of the 2 that they play at the Farmers in that Rhoda on Thursday and Friday. So anyway, there's a lot of different things, but the weather's also going to be rough this week. High winds, rain. They've let the rough grow out. So they're talking about 4+ inch rough. So I say all that because these are all factors as I'm looking at who I like to back heading into a golf tournament. I think you have to focus this week on power and accuracy. And that's why, and I mentioned it earlier when I was confusing my Ricky Fowler camo outfit, but it's chalky. But Rory McIlroy this week for me, you guys, 100 out of 100 times. The guy just got off a dominant win at Pebble when he drove the ball. Unbelievable, led the field in driving distance, led the field in driving accuracy. And if you put those 2 things together, your shots gained numbers are incredible off the tee, and they were. And then you just find a way to putt a decent score, and you're going to be in contention for sure. So Rory's plus top 5 is at plus 162. Yeah, I'm banging that number. He's 4 for 4 at Torrey. He's got 3 top 10s. The guy's got the history at the course, and you start to see, here's my formula for success. So Rory's my number 1. I'm going with the Big Maple. Pat hates Canadians, but I don't. And so Taylor Pendrith is my number 2 pick. He's a plus 750 right now, top 5. Taylor's actually another guy. He fits the course. He has a ton of success at Torrey Pines. He's 4 for 4 making cuts. He has 2 top 10s in his last 4 starts. And he also bombs the ball off the tee. And he's tons of power, and he's super, super accurate. So sorry, my dogs are going nuts. And so then my third pick is one that I'm going to take a little bit more of a stretch. I didn't want to go all chalky picks, so I tried to find somebody that's kind of a little bit of diamond in the rough. My third choice is Justin Rose this week. He's plus 2,500 top 5, so he's way down the list. But I mean, you give me those numbers and I'm tempted. He's won before at Torrey. He's been playing super well in 2025, very consistent. He finished tied for 3rd at Pebble in his last start. And, you give me inclement weather and you give me Justin Rose, the Englishman. And to me, it's a nice little combo for a guy that if you're looking for value, Justin Rose is my guy.
That's a good one. Yeah, I like that. 2,500 for top 5. I could easily see him get on fire this weekend and do that.
Yeah, I didn't do any fades this week, but I would agree with Pat somewhat that just the reason I would fade Scheffler is not because I don't think he's going to play well, but I just don't think you get any value. So you're just reaching and paying. The odds are just not in your favor. And if he has one bad 9, like he did on Sunday afternoon at Waste Management, he's not going to be there in that top 5, top 10. So, I don't necessarily fade Scheffler as a player. The guy's still phenomenal, but just not getting that value, in my opinion. So, Bierman, what are you looking at this week?
Yeah, so a few pop out at me. I'll start with the one that Pat mentioned, Sepp Straka. Straka has just been super hot this year, but his odds are surprisingly pretty nice. He's at plus 4,500 to win, plus 700 for top 5, and plus 300 for top 10, which I kind of like. I like him this week. He has had 2 top 10 finishes this season, including a win at the American Express. He's number 18 on the tour in driving accuracy, number 8 in CN saves, number 9 in ball striking, number 3 in greens and regulation. So at those odds, I like it a lot. And then this one is more of a dark horse, I think, but not really. I mean, not like a Justin Rose dark horse, but this guy has had a great season so far. He just doesn't have the name brand recognition as some others, but that's Russell Henley. Henley is 4th on tour in putts per round. He's 6th in driving accuracy, 6th in putting average, and he's made 15 consecutive cuts. So he's been very consistently good. And you can get him at plus 5,000 to win, plus 750 for top 5, and plus 320 for top 10. And then finally, and this is probably my favorite, but it's also the chalkiest. I love Colin Morikawa in this tourney. He's made 19 consecutive cuts, so again, very consistent. He's number 2 in driving accuracy, number 1 in greens and regulation, 6th in putting average. He's only played in 2 tournaments in 2025, but he did well in both. He second place finished at the Century and 17th at the Pebble Beach Pro-Am a couple weeks ago. Last season, Morikawa played 23 tournaments and he earned 7 top 5 finishes. So about 30% of the time, which is pretty freaking impressive. So, while I wish we got a little more value out of this, I will still bet him at these odds, which are plus 1,600 to win, plus 260 top 5, and plus 125 top 10. And honestly, for that one, I'd probably just go for the win. I have a feeling he could do it. And plus 1,600, I like it. It seems so easy.
Yeah, it does. It does. I love talking about golf, though. It's so fun.
I know, dude. I can tell you are you're like
up.
You're
like me talking about cartoons.
Yeah, there you go, buddy. Well, that is a perfect segue. So let's dive into this week's top 5. For this one, pop out the cereal, the pajamas, and the 19-inch black and white televisions, because we get to go back to our childhoods and get a little nostalgic for this one. We are going to share out our top 5 favorite cartoons. Now, it can be any time period, so it certainly can be more recent if you want, but it can also be the childhood classics. So that's what we're going to get into today. Pat, why don't you kick us off, buddy, with your number 5 and 4?
Sure. And I just want to let everyone know that we live in a society with rules, and sometimes Eric likes to break those rules and throw
I'm a rule breaker.
5 A, B, and C. So I'm gonna go Eric, I'm gonna go full Eric this week, and you're getting
my god.
Yeah. Wow. If you can't beat him, join him.
Yep, my number 5. The evolution of cartoons in my life. I used to watch like He-Man, Smurfs, all these,
my god, I totally forgot about the
DuckTales.
I almost put them in.
All these Tom and Jerry's, all these, little kid cartoons when I was a kid, and wake up Saturday and put on your PJs and eat your cereal in front of the TV and watch these. So my number 5, I'm going to go with my youth. With my number 5 is Inspector Gadget.
Nice.
Okay, so you got Don.
That is so good.
Don Adams was the voice. He was also Inspector Gadget in real life. Go Gadget Arms. He had his niece Penny and Brain the dog, and they always go after the mad villains, Dr. Claw. And I always liked that show. So my number 5 is going to be more from my youth. 5 and 4 will be more from my youth, and then I'll get into some more older shows. But Inspector Gadget, number 5, and number 4, gimme Shay, Scooby-Doo.
Yes,
the mystery machines out there. The mystery machines out there, and they're getting after it, and they would have got away with it if it wasn't for those meddling kids and that stupid dog. Yep, and you'd have Scrappy Doo come in once in a while, and his cousin.
Scrappy.
the Harlem Globetrotter episodes were fantastic. Always fun to watch. So yeah, give me Scooby-Doo at number 4. Although I could have gone with the Jetsons. I mean, there's so many good ones.
Totally.
What about you, Bill?
This was a hard one to do the top 5.
Yeah.
But what's
That's
crazy,
why I have 12 in my top 5. So no, I'm kidding.
Perfect. Yeah, nice. That's great. And the thing is I realized, much like Pat, it was like Saturday mornings was this big thing. I didn't get to watch a lot of TV in my house growing up. So my parents we actually, me and my sister Tam, we had pretty strict rules around how much we could watch. But Saturday mornings was one of those where it's like, okay, you get up and you get to tune in. So my number 5, I'm going old school as well, similar to Pat. I went with old school Looney Tunes. I mean, you just start going down the roster of characters: Wile E. Coyote, Roadrunner, Yosemite Sam, Pepe Le Pew, Foghorn Leghorn, awesome, Bugs Bunny, obviously, etc. And the thing is I can't really tell you anything about a specific like episode or series or season or whatever, right? But it's just like, it just feels like our youth, and it's so nostalgic thinking back. So that was my number 5. My number 4, Pat already nailed it. He even threw the impression in there. Scooby-Doo for me. I was kind of laughing as I was thinking back, but Casey Kasem was the voice, right?
Yeah,
and so that
Shaggy
voice just instantly like takes you back to his whole top 40s. And I think we talked about him a few podcasts ago, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
But Scooby-Doo, classic. I love that Pat, I would have gotten away with it, line. I had that written in my notes as well.
Meddling kids.
If it wasn't for these meddling kids, Daphne, sneaky hot. So it's like, it's kind of
Velma.
As a kid.
You got to go with Velma.
Velma, sneaky hot, right? I don't know. Depends on your flavor, I suppose. But it was like, but it just was like, it's such a classic show. And then as we got older, you start to hear about all of the like pot references and all of the kind of counterculture stuff that they worked in there.
Yeah.
Scooby
What's
snacks,
in those
mystery
Scooby snacks?
The green mystery machine van. I mean, just like a bunch of stuff. So anyway, that's my 5 and 4. Bierman, what do you got for yours?
I love it. So I'm going, my first 2 are, I don't even know if you've heard either of these ones, actually. You probably have. But number 5, I'm going with Super Friends. Do you guys remember that one?
Mm-hmm.
This was basically Justice League, but it was called Super Friends. So yeah, it had Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, Aquaman, and all the DC
the
comics
ambiguously
superheroes.
gay duo.
Yeah, well, all of that, yeah, exactly. All of them worked out of the Hall of Justice, which, by the way, was patterned after Cincinnati's very own Union Station Terminal building.
Really?
So yeah, check it out. You will see, if you look at both of them, they look exactly the same. They often had to battle the Legion of Doom with villains like Lex Luthor, Riddler, Brainiac. But the best was the Wonder Twins, where they could turn into other things. I love this. The girl could turn into any animal, and the boy could turn into anything as long as it was water related. It had to be related to water of some sort. But they first had to touch each other's hands and say, Wonder Twin powers activate.
Oh, yeah.
That had, and of course, they had a pet alien monkey called Gleek, because why not?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So yeah, Super Friends number 5, and then number 4. I loved this freaking show. It was called the Laugh Olympics, and this show started in the late 70s. It was primarily a spoof of like the Battle of the Network Stars show, which was like on the ABC primetime, which debuted like a year or 2 earlier. It featured a lot of different Hanna-Barbera characters, and they were organized into like 3 teams. So you had the Scooby-Doobies, the Yogi Yahooies, and the Really Rottens. And the teams would like compete in all kinds of like events, basically Olympic type of events. And the Really Rottens, with characters like Dastardly Dalton, Daisy Mayhem, and Mumbly the Evil Dog, they cheated like every episode, and then they'd be caught at the end every time. But you got to see fun characters that you didn't get to see often in other shows, like Huckleberry Hound, Quick Draw McGraw, Speed Buggy, Captain Caveman. So yeah, that one I just freaking loved. But it wasn't on for that long, and it wasn't on like not often. It didn't feel like it was on like every Saturday morning either. So, and the good guys always won. So Pat, it taught us impressionable kids a valuable lesson, didn't it? It's important to have those.
Don't cheat.
Yeah, don't cheat. Never pays off. All right. Well, Pat, what do you got for number 3 and 2?
Well, number 3, part A, and 3, part B. I don't know if you guys have ever seen, this is more the Cartoon Network kind of shows, but Aqua Teen Hunger Force. It has Meatwad, Fry Guy, Shake. You've never seen this? And the neighbor Carl. Oh my God, Carl's the best. He's hilarious. I highly recommend Aqua Teen Hunger Force. It's the wildest show. And then the other,
like an Uber Eats?
Are you making this shit up, dude?
No,
you're making this up.
Aqua Teen Hunger Force. Look it up. Great show.
Okay.
I can't believe you guys have never heard of that. How about Space Ghost Coast to Coast? Have you ever heard of Space Ghost? Oh my God, Space Ghost is hilarious. I think Johnny Carson.
I don't think I've watched a cartoon in 40 years, Pat.
Yeah.
So think of like Johnny Carson, but instead of Johnny Carson, it's like a superhero. And he's completely uninterested in a guest that he has on. Like he'll have a guest on, and they'll be explaining something and be like, I stopped a meteor. He'll just be like, I stopped a meteor from hitting Earth today. What'd you do? He's very vain and like, oh, it's good. Space Ghost and Aqua Teen Hunger Force. Those are like so goofy. They're funny. Highly recommend them. And then my number 2, I went with the 2A, B, and C. And these are more the adult cartoons that have adult humor, like South Park, Family Guy, and The Simpsons. So those 3 together, I mean, my love for these started with The Simpsons early on, and then you got into the South Park in college and Family Guys. I mean, they're just too funny. Every once in a while on my phone will give me like a Family Guy clip, and it's usually a little dark, but very funny and not PC at all. So those are my 3 and 2. But I highly, highly recommend that you guys go watch Aqua Teen Hunger Force and Space Ghost Coast to Coast. Just a little clip, just to see what they are.
All right.
But the neighbor Carl in Aqua Teen Hunger Force is the funniest.
That's great. I swear, though, Pat could have kept going with his 3C, 3D, 3E of the ones that he's made up. And Eric and I would be like, it'd be like Balderdash of the top 5. We'd just be like, that sounded awesome. I mean,
Speed Racer? Did you guys ever watch Speed Racer?
Oh, yeah. Speed Racer.
Speed Racer was freaking awesome.
Yeah, Speed Racer is good. That's old school.
Yeah. Yeah, Pat mentioned my number 3, South Park. I'm by no means like a super fan by any means, but I really did appreciate the satire, the pop culture, the current events, like the political, all the different things. Pretty brilliant show. I always thought, and I always laughed my ass off when I would watch it. Felt like Comedy Central was really like banging for quite a while there, and that was just another piece of it where if you were flipping through the channels, you'd be like, well, let's see what's on Comedy Central. Oh, South Park. I mean, I wouldn't change it, right? So that to me says a lot. I also just love the fact that Kenny always died like early on, and it just was that in Cartman always just killed me.
Running joke. I always love a good running joke.
Yeah, it's like, oh, yeah, there Kenny died. How did he die this episode? So anyway, South Park was my number 3. My number 2, I'm going just super, super old school, cool, what I thought. And some funny things as I was researching this, but I'm going with the Flintstones. For one, I dare you to not just now think the Flintstones theme song in your head. Classic, right? Yep. I mean, it kind of just brings you back, right? Exactly. And so just some classic characters in there. Again, I don't remember any specific episodes or anything like that, but it was just always seemed to be funny. And then in doing research, will be my parting thought on the Flintstones. It actually started with a sponsor of Winston cigarettes. And so at the end of every episode, I still can't believe this.
They're sitting there smoking.
They're smoking. Yeah. They're smoking. This is a kid's cartoon. And they're just like, and they're smoking Winstons. And I'm just like, yeah, it's just so, it was baffling to me. I don't remember that.
That was 60s television.
Yeah.
That's crazy, dude.
Anyway, just Fred and Wilma just ripping cigs at the end of this kid's cartoon. I just thought it was so
with
classic.
Bam Bam in the building, and they don't even
Yep.
care. Getting
Yeah.
that
Yep,
Bam Bam's
I
getting
know.
that secondhand smoke.
Totally. Barney, Betty, Bam Bam. I mean, you know, Pebbles, like
Pebbles,
just the Dino was
Dino,
their pet.
yeah.
Dinosaur. But the other thing too, I just last official comment on the Flintstones, but you know, it feels like riding in a golf cart. We've all been in something where it just didn't have enough juice to get you up the hill. And every time, every person knows that when you put your foot outside the golf cart and you're helping it along, you're doing the Flintstones, right?
You're doing the Flintstones.
Doing the Flintstones. So
That's
you got to
so
Flintstones
good,
this thing, right? And you get it going. So anyway, just a cultural, such an important part, I guess, of our youth.
That's awesome, dude. That is a good one. All right, so my number 3, I'm going with Fat Albert. This one was great because it had Bill Cosby always setting it up in real life, like in a junkyard, and then it would go to the animated cartoon.
So good.
I liked Bill Cosby's voices. I've always thought he was funny, and that was kind of my first exposure to him as a kid. Then I really liked the characters in the show, especially there was a guy named Mushmouth, and then there was a Dumb Donald who seriously wore a winter hat covering his entire face in every episode. It was also fairly educational program, but it was funny. It was entertaining. It was about a group of friends who had each other's backs. And even though Albert certainly was fat, that kid could play some serious basketball, man. I mean, he was he had some hops on the court.
Some skills.
So, yeah.
And stickball.
That's true.
Yeah.
And then my number 2, Bill, Flintstones, baby. We're getting into the true classics now. I freaking loved the Flintstones. It ran on ABC prime time, actually, from 1960 to 66. Fred Flintstone was based on Jackie Gleason's character Ralph Cramden in The Honeymooners. You know, it spoofed a lot of like the modern amenities by showing what those might have looked like back in the prehistoric ages, which I just always found comical. It ran much more like a traditional sitcom with like 23-minute storylines, and I don't know, I like that. It kept my attention. Of course, Fred and Barney always seemed to be getting into trouble. The best was when they would go bowling and they were in there, like it was like I think it was the Order of the Water Buffaloes was the name of their like men's club, and they had to wear like
that's right,
giant buffalo hats and stuff. I just love that. You know, Mr. Slate was kind of a dick, but you gotta love Dino. Dino was freaking awesome. Bam Bam and Pebbles. I mean, it's just true love was meant to be there, fellas. So
yeah.
Solid. Love the Flintstones. All right, number 1 for you, Pat.
I always liked that the Jetsons too. You know, the Jetsons was like talk about what things would be like in the future. The Flintstones way in the past, and then every once in a while, I think they did these like mergers where the Flintstones meet the Jetsons.
They did. And by the way, the Jetsons, I think, was supposed to take place like right now.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Oh, wow.
It's about, as I look out my window,
that's crazy.
Yeah, that's what we're living.
Yeah, we'll have to get Mackenzie on that to check the dates, but I'm almost positive the Jetsons are supposed to happen like the 2020s.
Wow, that's crazy.
Nice. Yeah, Bill, my number 1 is Looney Tunes. I went.
Very good. All right.
I mean, it's just such a classic lineup. Sylvester and Tweety. You got Roadrunner. Every time you're like, man, this is the week that the Coyotes gonna win. It's gonna happen finally, and it never did. But yeah, I loved that whole lineup, and you know, obviously Donald and Daffy and Elmer Fudd, Hunt and Webbits, and you got the whole thing. You know, it was an hour of just good fun. And usually, I think that show was about an hour. Unlike most of them were a half hour. But I always felt
I think it was a full hour.
Was it?
Yeah, I think it was a full hour.
But that one just never disappointed. It's just so classic.
Did it just roll through different stories?
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
they didn't. It had like 8 different. They were all short.
It was just
they were all Foghorn Leghorn, I think, was always my favorite.
I say Eric. I say.
Yeah. Yep.
But that you
That's
can't
so
go
good.
wrong with Looney Tunes. That's the one that makes you think back to cereals on Saturday. Is Looney Tunes. So
Cracklin' Oat Bran.
yeah, with tons of sugar.
It's so good. You guys got to try it.
All right,
That's
Bill.
great, Pat. Yeah, love it. My first one, it's going to be a little bit off the grid, the United States off the grid. It's called Tintin. Have you guys ever heard of Tintin? Do you know who that is? Like, or that character? So
Yeah.
Tintin was a young Belgian reporter who is like this adventurer, and him and his faithful little white terrier Snowy go around the world, like, solving these mysteries and everything. I started it as a kid with the books, and you had to go to like University Bookstore down at the University of Washington, and that was the only place that would have these things. And my mom would find these books, super rare to find them. And so then, I would get these books, maybe like one at Christmas or something like that. But oh man, I looked forward to those, and I meant to grab one, and I was going to show it to you guys. I still have them, but anyway, it became a cartoon series as well. And it's something that Steven Spielberg, I didn't even remember this, but he directed the film in 2011.
Yeah.
That was based on the books as well.
My kids would never want to watch that. I always wanted to watch that, and my kids would want to watch Frozen again or Nemo again.
It's a little. It was. Yeah, not necessarily a little kids show, I wouldn't think, but came out in the early 90s. And it was, for me, it was just a throwback to these books that I just adored when I was a younger kid. So that's my number one. If anybody gets a chance, I would recommend some great characters in it, some funny stuff, not PC by any means, like the way they depicted Africans. And there's a lot of controversy now around the series just because it was this Belgian dude Herge back in the 50s and 60s, I think, that developed it originally. But just a classic series that I really enjoyed. So
I've never heard of it. I've seriously never heard of it, so I'll have to check it out.
Yeah, definitely.
It's awesome. Well, for me, number one, Pat, Scooby-Doo, Where Are You? It's just, come on, to me, hands down favorite. I would watch that one all the time. Theme song, of course, is just iconic. Like the Flintstones, they were more traditional, like sitcom type stories. I loved just like the guest stars. Like you mentioned, they had the Harlem Globetrotters. Next episode, they'd have Don Knotts on there. They had Laurel and Hardy. I remember Sonny and Cher even was on there one time. I mean, they just had so many different, yes. Like it was, I just thought that was kind of cool. So, and it doesn't hurt that I might have had a little thing for Daphne. Is that wrong? Because she was smoking hot. She was
wait. Which
not
one
even
was
sneaky
Daphne?
hot?
Which one was Daphne and which one was Velma?
Daphne was the smoking hot one.
And Velma was the one with the glasses?
Velma was the orange.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. I had him back. Okay.
I thought Velma just might have been more your speed.
I do like smart chicks. I do have a thing for women that have brains. Because I don't.
I do have to say
the balance.
I do also just have to say, in the late 90s and early 2000s, they started making direct-to-video movies for Scooby-Doo, like Scooby-Doo and Pirates Ahoy, Scooby-Doo and the Cyber Chase, Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island, Scooby-Doo meets the Loch Ness Monster. Like, they made, like, tons of these. But what was cool about it, and these were, like, 80-minute type things, and they were all, like, on, like, VHS or DVD even. But who now older kids, Mackenzie and Brady, but at the time they were little, and so they got into Scooby-Doo and they loved these, and so I got to watch these with them, and it was just, they loved it, and so that was very entertaining and enjoyable. So yeah, definitely Scooby-Doo number one for me.
Classic. Eric, did you see this? I know if you're listening to us, you can't see it.
Oh my God, there we go. Tintin, the Secret of the Unicorn. Okay.
Tintin is this dude here. Yeah.
Okay.
Captain Haddock.
No, I've never. So you've heard of this, Pat? You've
Tintin. I know I was trying to get my kids to watch the movie that Spielberg did a few years ago.
Is that the dog Snowy?
Yeah. Snowy. Yeah.
But I never got into it as a kid.
billions of blistering barnacles. Like he would do like these alliterations of like, and then he was freaked out of this opera singer, like some weird dynamics within it. But anyway, it was just very, very, very entertaining stories, and they do a nice job with it.
There are a lot that we did not even like mention. Like Tom and Jerry is another classic. Yeah. You know, you mentioned Pat the Smurfs. I can't believe I didn't think of that one. I had
Smurfs in my original file.
You know, South Park's a good one, Bill. Like I watched that the first season or two, and it was hilarious. It was good, but I haven't watched it in so many years.
Did you guys watch G.I. Joe? Or
no?
Yes. Do you remember the All-Star Blazers? What was that one? All-Star Blazers or something like that. It was in space. Do you remember that one? No. It was on right before G.I. Joe, or like right after. They were connected. Oh man, what was it? You don't remember that? They got the narrator would come on and he'd go, 321 years since Stardate, blah blah blah, whatever it was, or something. It was like a Star Trek ripoff, I think.
Yeah.
But
okay.
You don't. Oh wow.
No, okay. I've never heard of it.
It might come back to me if I see it again, but yeah. But G.I. Joe, I was a big G.I. Joe.
G.I. Joe, yeah.
Scorpio, was it Scorpio was the bad guy in G.I. Joe, and like you had.
I was big into the action figures. Did you guys ever get into those little guys?
Transformers and all that stuff. Yep.
Transformers. None of us said Transformers.
Big one.
That's like in our.
If I had all my He-Man toys, they would be worth so much money.
They'd be worth a lot.
Yeah,
they would. All right, boys. Well, that was another fun one and a nice trip back to our days of yesteryear. Before we close this show, let's give everyone an update on Nailed It. We had 10 listeners qualify for the Super Bowl edition of Nailed It, and it was a close one, but I am happy to announce that longtime Sandman Nation member, Mr. Mike Paston, was the winner.
Mike.
Congratulations, Mike. Was really happy to see that. Mike lives in Philadelphia, and he will join me, Bill, and Pat for a fun-filled weekend.
Thanks for coming, Mike.
Thanks, Mike.
Bring your wallet, big guy.
What a guy.
What a guy. Go Eagles.
We are going to have a nice dinner at Jeff Rui's, guys. You're going to enjoy that. We'll catch a Reds game and plenty of other fun and craziness along the way. So really looking forward to it. The three of us and Mike. We're going to have to nail down some dates here soon. Probably looking at April, May, or June, I think, is the best options from a timing and just a weather standpoint. And, of course, Mike gets to join us on this podcast as a guest. Nice. So we'll get that scheduled, too. We aren't quite sure yet what our next listener competition will look like, but we'll have something, and I'm sure we will announce that in the coming weeks. Thank you again to everyone who participated in this. It was a lot of fun. All right, Seaman Nation, this has been another epic show, but it is sadly time to exit Sandman Sports. Before we do, though, a few reminders of where to find us. Follow us, like us, subscribe to us, and spread the word, please. Instagram at Enter Sandman Sports, hit that follow button. Facebook and at Enter Sandman Sports, join the conversation, stay updated. We've got YouTube at Enter Sandman Sports. Subscribe to us, catch all of our latest video content, and then of course our website at entersandmansports.com. That's all we got, boys. Enjoy the weekend, stay warm, and may all your bets hit big time. Peace out. Take care.